Hey, Grant. Hey, Nikki.
Good morning.
How's everyone doing?
Pretty good.
Doing good, Dennis. How are you?
I'm doing good, thanks. I think. Try not to look too close, right?
It's one way of going about it.
You ever heard of a baseball player named Satchel Paige?
No.
He was I think he was the first black player to make it into the major leagues, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong on that. But he was pretty close to 60 years old by the time he made it. And he still played unbelievably well for a short period of time. But what was really interesting about him were all of his sayings that he used to have. And one of them is, "Don't look back, something might be gaining on you." So anyway, kind of cool. Kind of cool. Hey, Kym, how are you?
I'm doing well, Dennis. Trying to stay out of trouble. How about you?
Yeah, anything gaining on you?
Lord, I couldn't tell you. We have been extremely blessed and busy right now. It's unimaginably. We're fourth quarter busy right now.
Wow.
And I don't know what happened. I don't know what's going on. Maybe it was the peanut suit. I don't know. But whatever it is, we're gonna appreciate it and roll with it. But
Yeah, well, I think what's happened, from an outsider's perspective, you've been building your business and you've been doing a variety of things to build awareness, including the peanut suit. And I think, it's like the old saying, the harder you work, the luckier you get.
That that may be true. That may be true.
It's kind of accumulative. And when you find your product market fit, you're gonna know it. Maybe that's what's happening.
Maybe, maybe.
All right. Um, so I'm gonna share with you if I can figure this out. We'll just try this while we're waiting for a few more people to show up. Let me share my screen. This is pretty wild. Okay. So let's see here. Let's see if I can find the Bernie Sanders one. Okay. Well, we'll just try one of these. So there's a real interesting development in technology that I think will affect all of us. And I don't know if any of you have been following this whole text to image creation. So what's happening is, let's just say you were looking for, a picture for your website. Let's say you're looking for a little boy eating peanuts. We use Kime as an example. The way you go about that, you search on the internet. Maybe you can find a photo somewhere. There's such a thing as stock images, which you might be familiar with. And this is just basically a whole bunch of pictures that you actually pay a relatively small amount of money for a particular picture, depending on how you're going to use it. Is it going to go in a magazine? Is it going on a website, and so forth? And the last thing that most of us do not do, mostly because of finances, you could also create hire a photographer or a graphics person and create something through some sort of live shoot. It could be in a kitchen or whatever. It could be any number of things. And all of those things take either money and or talent or skill. I don't know if any of you have looked at any of the software programs like that Adobe has, for example, like Photoshop, Illustrator. There's just so many of these out here now where to help you design graphics, edit photos, et cetera, et cetera. And in general, most people, there is a really steep learning curve on how to use all this stuff in such a way that it's useful, particularly for a business. And I would argue that the people who really know how to use things like Photoshop are a very small subset of the general population. Like any other professional, there's some people who've really committed themselves to learning this, and they do this as for a living, or they work for ad agencies, and et cetera, et cetera. But most of that stuff is really difficult for regular people to use in some way. So I'm trying to find a particular picture, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it or not. Let's just play around this a little bit. Here we go. I found Bernie. Okay. So what's happened now is, and I'm not today. I'm actually may end up having a class on this, but I just want to introduce it. This is a type of technology where, in this case here, you're looking at a picture of Bernie Sanders, basically dressed in the Mad Max movie kind of setup. If you know that movie with Mel Gibson, it's kind of a crazy movie about the future and people running around the desert in Jeeps and all this kind of stuff. And here you see a picture of Bernie Sanders, I can assure you that Bernie Sanders did not pose dressed like this for somebody to either take this picture or to draw the painting or whatever. This was all done by artificial intelligence. And believe it or not, the way this photo was created, a text box appears on the software. And unfortunately, I just don't have time to go into all that right now. But in this text box, you write what it is you'd like to see. So in this example, somebody put Bernie Sanders in a Mad Max Jeep wearing Mad Max clothes with sunglasses and et cetera, and just went on to describe what it is that they wanted to see. And then the software creates the image from the text. There's no photos involved. There's no editing involved. Now you can edit that. That's inaccurate. You can edit, but that's a separate subject. But essentially, the image is created by a stream of text that you come up with. It could be, you know, I want to see a green cow on the moon eating cheese, and it will create that picture for you. So I just wanted to introduce the concept to everybody so that you could kind of see what's going on. You're going to be hearing more and more about this. It's causing quite a disruption in the creative community because they're saying, you know, why would somebody hire a photographer to do an expensive shoot somewhere when they could, you know, figure out how to create it using software. So I just thought that was pretty cool or pretty interesting, and I'm sure there are tons of problems with it as well. Like one of the things I know is a problem. The images that are in these databases aren't always authorized. So in other words, somebody went on Pinterest, for example, or some other website and just downloaded a whole bunch of photos and put them in a database. They didn't pay anybody. They didn't get permission, all that kind of stuff. So I think there are some ethical considerations about just whose raw material is this. Some of the software programs do allow you to upload your own image and then add all this other stuff to it. So in this case here, somebody had Bernie Sanders, but you could have your product, you could have anything you could possibly think of. You can create social media stories, you know, like sequential stories, really almost, you know, unbelievable type of stuff. You know, somebody eating Kimes peanuts on the moon, or for example, or it's gonna make you feel over the moon or something. I don't know, but it's just there's a lot of creativity that's coming, and I probably will cover this once I learn how to do it. I've been spending a little bit of time on it, but it's so far everything costs a fair amount of money, and I'm just not interested in spending a lot of money at this point. So I'm trying to find the kind of free tools and all that kind of stuff. So I did want to share that with everybody. All right. So now we're going to go into our category design, and this is how to implement the category design strategy. And we're going to see some examples here about how to apply it. So let's start off here. And this is an introduction to the strategy of category design, which I think will be helpful for everybody.
Hey everybody, I'm Mike Damphouse, partner at Category Design Advisors. Today we're going to talk about category design best practices for those of you that want to roll your own project. We obviously do it for a living, but a lot of companies can't afford to pay us what we'd like to command. So we're going to show you how to do it, and hopefully you can work with your team and create your own category. So before we start, how many people in this room walked in here today thinking category design is about messaging and positioning? Pretty common. Category design is not marketing. But category design is not positioning and branding. In fact, if I'm talking to a company, especially if the CMO calls me first, and they start talking about messaging and branding and positioning, I basically say, give the book to your CEO and we'll talk in 2 weeks. Category design is a company strategy, and CEOs see that. And if you remember, marketing is traditional, compete with your competition, say why you're better. Our software is this much faster than your software. Category design is about marketing the problem. You market the problem, then you worry about the solution and communicate that. And if you don't set yourself aside as different, you're just another player in the market. And that's what category design is all about. You're creating a new place in people's minds to put you, and a new way for them to realize they have a problem that maybe they didn't know they had. It's company strategy. Kevin went over this in the overview presentation, but essentially most companies focus on product design and company design. Adding category design to this actually treats all the other aspects of running your company in a way that you focus on category. Every decision you make, whether it's a marketing decision or an engineering decision, even a hiring decision, category is going to give you a different way to position your decision making in a company and running a company. It's making decisions. When we talk to potential clients, it's funny, they look at the contract and they say, oh, what are you going to deliver to us? And it's like, oh, well, we're going to deliver a category name. We're going to deliver a point of view. We're going to deliver a category thesis. We're going to deliver a lightning strike plan. And the biggest deliverable is going to be helping you make decisions. And they always think that's ethereal. They're like, you're going to help us make decisions? But every project we've done, and yesterday was a great example, company just acquired another company. First time the executive team was in a room together, the whole day was nothing but making decisions. And those decisions are going to lead you to creating the best category you can create. So where do we start? Two people in a basement come up with an idea, write a little demo code, go to AWS and create a prototype, and then they say, what are we going to do? What's our mission in life? Start with, this is in the book, start with Dave's 3 questions. This is Dave Peterson, one of the other co-authors of Play Bigger. And Dave's 3 questions are pretty straightforward. Essentially, the first one is, what problem do you solve? Second, if you solve that problem, what is the category? And third, if you build a category, how big is it? So let's look at it. First thing you want to do is focus on the problem. A lot of people focus on the solution, but what you want to do is focus on the problem and think to yourself, is this a market insight, a technology insight? Uber was a market insight. We are sick of riding in dirty, stinky cabs. They don't come by when I need them. How nice would it be if I clicked on my phone and actually got a car to show up for me? Technology insight, VMware. We have all this computing power sitting in our IT centers. What if we could harness that and create multiple virtual machines? Technology insight. And then lastly, what's the emotional aha? What will your customers understand and be felt like they're getting punched in the gut, that they have a problem they need to solve? And if you think that way, you're going to end up being able to focus on the solution in such a way that you're going to develop the products differently, you're going to communicate to the market differently, because people understand their problems. If you're having to educate them on your solution, they're not listening. Here's a great example. Bill Gates. In the late 90s, and I remember when it came out because I wanted one, they announced the tablet. And all the tablet was a notebook computer that you flipped down and you had a flat screen and you could touch it. And the way he communicated this to the market was, you can walk around with this and you can do things on it with your finger. Then you had Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs, when he announced the iPad, he essentially said, look, we all have computers, we all have cell phones. There's something in the middle. And that new category is the iPad, is the way he introduced it. It's on YouTube, you can watch it. But what's interesting is the iPad is still a flat computer that you manipulate with your finger. But it was focused on consuming media, reading, watching videos, just quickly while you're sitting in your living room, picking it up, looking at the news, or look at your calendar for tomorrow. And it took off like wildfire. He focused on the problem. You have a clunky computer and you have a little phone. What if I give you something a little bit more comfortable to work with? Still just a tablet. Bill Gates missed it. Second of Dave's question, what is the category? So a category is a container where people store the problem and solution that you've mapped out for them. And those cognitive biases actually cause the category to be ingrained in their thinking, and therefore they're more inclined to buy your products. The category name is not that important to the whole process of cognitive biases, believe it or not. Category name should be utilitarian. People should be able to use it. If you create a category called Intelligent Security IT Specialty Platforms, who the hell's ever going to say that? And if they acronymize it, you're never going to know what it means, right? Whatever that was, ITMSBC, whatever. So basically, think of the category name as your best attempt to label your category. It should be good and concise, but it's not going to end your project if you're trying to create your own category. Here's a perfect example of something simple and obvious. Noise cancellation headsets. It says exactly what it does. Everyone knows what a headset is. It cancels out the noise. And if I said to you, what brand of noise cancellation headsets do you buy? Most people in the room are going to say Bose. And that's because they established the category. Don't lose sleep over developing a category name. We just did a project. It went 3 months. We like to come up with a name kind of in the middle of the process. We didn't come up with the name until the day of the lightning strike planning. It was just getting in the way. And if it gets in the way, it'll prevent you from thinking through all the issues that take you to the category point of view, which we're going to talk about. It's just a name. Here's a tip. This is something we do in projects once in a while. If you're stuck on a category name, or your co-founders and executive team are sitting in a room and everyone's debating what makes sense, hand out yellow stickies to everybody and say, put down 5 words that you think should influence a category name. Have them do it, everyone writes them down. Say, okay, now rank them from 5 to 1. So everybody ranks them, they choose the word they thought of first, so it always puts a 5 in. Then take those words, build a spreadsheet, and if a word is ranked as a 5, put that word in 5 times. If it's ranked as a 2, put it in twice. And then do that for all the yellow stickies and keep building this spreadsheet, and then copy it into a word cloud generator. And then you look at it and you can visually get some creative ideas on what words might make sense. Here, connected is important, intelligent is important. What's interesting is the word that the client was focusing on was advertising. And this exercise caused them to throw it out the window. Trademark. Everybody wants to protect everything they do. IP lawyers live in big houses and have big boats. Category design, you don't protect it. It's a gift to the world. You want your competitors to use your category. If people don't think of the category as just a prolific common thing, then it'll be yours and you'll be the only one that has it. And sure, Google will put you at the top every time, but your competitors and the analysts and Gartner, they'll never create a magic quadrant titled my category name if it's trademarked. So come up with something general and think about your competitors. What category should we create that's going to be different? You're going to be able to educate the market, and you'll eventually, because of the way category design works, you'll become the leader. But if you protect it so much that nobody else wants to touch it, then you're going to fail. You'll fall on your face. Now, if you have a lawyer or if you have technology that is very protectable, it's IP, you're just, falling on your face when you tell your lawyer, we don't want to trademark this or register it. There's a process called provisional trademarking. So this is the out. If you got an investor that demands you to do this, file a provisional trademark application, then just put it in the drawer. And in 3 years, when your competitor goes to try to register it, you can pull it out and it's yours. How big is your market? So in the book, there's a concept called your suit size. You wear your suit today, your software does something for advertising, and it does it for consumer marketing. But what if your application someday could also do it for business-to-business marketing, B2B? That's the suit size. You put the suit on today that fits, but what if you made it a little bigger and grew into it? That's what the concept of suit size is all about. So don't restrict your vision. If your universe is this big, but it could be that big, create a bigger category. A $0 billion market, VCs love that. A $0 billion market means nobody else has figured this out yet. That's the kind of market you want to go after. So you've come up with a category. What do we do next? You want to mobilize your whole company, your ecosystem if you have partners, and you want to go out and do what we call a lightning strike. And some people misunderstand how the book conveys lightning strikes because they talk about really elegant, marketing campaigns, big events. Lightning strike can be simple. It can be 5 very significant people that you want to get in a room together, and you tell them about your story, your point of view, and you drop a press release on PR Newswire. You bought dinner and you spent $700, right? You can go the other way around and you can hijack a show. You can get the biggest booth, advertising Wall Street Journal. You'll spend $500,000. You can get just as effective, because if you do that show and you end up with 5 clients, you could have had a really nice dinner and ended up with the same 5 clients. But a lightning strike is the concept of setting the category agenda and starting the conversation. Get people to use your taxonomy and your language. Get them to tell your story. And once you do that, the word of mouth is going to grow. Lightning strike and mobilization is setting a flag on the hill. It gives everybody in your company a destination, a goal, something to march to. It's a process of changing the way people think. When you think, the example we used earlier, if you're thinking advertising and you need to be thinking something different, what is that different? Think about what that different might be. So here's some examples. If you want to change your audience, your employees, get them to change from their old way of thinking to a new way of thinking. So you might look at something. Can we increase revenue? Can we be more relevant? But the key is to shift people away from their existing thought process. If they keep thinking, and I'll go back to the VMware example, if they keep thinking, oh, I'll just buy another computer, I'll put it in my IT center, Get them to think, no, I have idle computing power. I'm going to do a virtual machine. So you get people to shift. We call them in the book Frodos, from to, and get that shift happening with everything you communicate. I'm going to talk about process and timing of a project. Now, this is somewhat based on what we do when we're working with a client, but you can take the same formula and run it through your company. Essentially, we start with, and the way we do this project, this takes about 3 months. But start with a discovery process. Come up with general questions that you might have from the book. Use Dave's 3 questions. Give it to your trusted advisors. You could have one of your board members, an investor, your executive team, co-founder, a key player that always contributes good ideas. Have them answer Dave's 3 questions on their own, and then compile the results and have everybody share the results and see where they lead you. Next thing you want to do, focus really heavy on the problem. Think it through. Think about what people really think their problem is, and don't think about solution until you have nailed the problem. Marketecture. Things like a category blueprint, an ecosystem, or your persona study. Think about your vision. What's your roadmap? Then go in and think about the name. At this point, you've done a lot of work, a lot of homework. You should start to get a feel for what your category is going to be and where it's going to go. And once you've done that, then you develop your story. Everyone here has probably put together an investor pitch deck. The pitch deck can flow from the POV. Everybody's heard about storytelling. Storytelling's old school, POV is new school. Mobilization, putting together the lightning strike. Get your whole company, your whole market, get the analysts that cover your area, get everybody heading towards the agenda and the story you want them to tell. If you focus on this framework, you'll end up working it through the same way we do, the same way the book illustrates. And if you're stuck somewhere, if you're on company POV, and you say to yourself, God, go to the book. The book actually has an index. Everyone forgets that. So look up what you're stuck on and go back and read about it. Go to our website, go to Play Bigger's website. There's a bunch of information out there. Sample POVs are out there. So marketecture stuff, we're going to talk about each of the examples. First one is a category blueprint. And the blueprint sets the agenda and the requirements for your category and establishes what the problem is by illustrating it graphically. People learn through listening, by doing, or by seeing. And that's where the blueprint comes in handy. This is a category blueprint. Company's called Replicon, and we're going to show some examples of their work. But they're a time clock company. In factories and businesses where you go in, you say, I start work, I'm clocked in at 8 in the morning. Boring industry, right? What they realized is time is a very valuable asset for businesses. People are a valuable asset. And they were collecting all this information about time. And what they did is they applied machine learning to their time information that they gather, and they create what they call time intelligence. So that category is time intelligence. It interfaces with all the different aspects of time tracking. It applies different technology to it to come up with insights, and basically you end up with a bunch of business recommendations. So a blueprint's just a nice graphical way to represent your category. It also becomes, in most cases, a nice marketing asset, something to put in your investor deck. Build out an ecosystem. The ecosystem is it's again graphical, and it also is a process. But the ecosystem documents sort of the flow of your business. Here's an example. This was in the book. Essentially, if you look here, they talk about there are different areas they interface with, the agencies in the marketing industry, customer development. So it's illustrating every connection of your ecosystem and the things you interface with as you conduct your business. Understand your persona. Has anyone ever done a persona map before? I think it's funny, they always name everything, you know, like Marketing Maggie, you know. I just always chuckle about that. Who are you talking to? And you're gonna change, when you create your point of view, you're gonna then create a messaging Bible from that. And knowing who you're talking to is highly important because you're gonna tell the story differently if you're talking to an investor or if you're talking to a customer or if you're talking to the customer's CEO. HubSpot has some incredible examples on their website. Just Google HubSpot and the word persona, and you're gonna find templates and slide decks and videos. They talk all about it. But essentially, here I should have used the example Marketing Mary. But you're basically mapping out everybody's, you know, concerns, what problems they have that are unique to them, and it allows you to think differently about your category to make sure you're addressing all your different concerns and people. Know your vision and roadmap. Really important. If you're building a category today, you need to think about the promises you're going to communicate for the future. Facebook put their roadmap out, and what's funny is they didn't end up saying we dominate the world, but I think that's kind of the direction they're going. But essentially, they talk about where they're going every couple of years. And when you think about your roadmap, it allows you to translate that into your story. If you tell the story about you can buy this widget today, that's no big deal, right? A clicker. But if Logitech told this story about this widget a couple of years ago and said, what if you could move your widget around and it moved your mouse on the screen? That's what this clicker does, which is pretty cool.
Okay. Okay, one more, and then we're gonna go through the workbook a little bit.
What's your point of view? So basically, a point of view is a story. It's an emotional story. You want to appeal to people's instincts and their gut. The POV communicates what your whole category strategy is about. When you write your point of view, write it like you're telling a story in a bar. People call it your elevator pitch. I haven't told my story in an elevator ever, but I've told my story in a bar 1,000,000 times. Tell your story kind of like you've had 2 martinis, right? A little buzz opens up the creativity. Ernest Hemingway said, write drunk and edit sober. When you're putting your POV together, don't talk about why you're better. That just compares you to competition. Always be different. You want to establish the emotion of the problem, talk about the ramifications of not solving the problem, introduce your category and your solution, and then articulate why you're different and can solve it in no other way that anyone else can solve. Here's a point of view example. This is Replicon, the company we were just talking about, time intelligence. So when you're creating a point of view, it's kind of like when you were taught how to write a story back in school. Create a flow, right? A storyline. What we do is we start with the problem. Time tracking was old, clunky systems, blah, blah, blah. What are the ramifications of not doing anything with time tracking? Time goes missing. You don't know if people are cheating you on their overtime, etc. What's the vision for the future? AI can make this a more valuable thing to the company. Time can become valuable. Time can be an asset. And then what are the outcomes, the value of using the solution? If you map this out in a very simple way, think of it as a story, 100 words, 200 words, 100 words, 200 words, you end up with a nice short 2-minute story.
Okay. I just want to point out here, as always, there are worksheets here. And, this can be a lot of work. I understand. But there are tools here. And I think this category design steps is really, really helpful. And he's as a consultant, they're always trying to change the words that you might use. So he said, storytelling is old and point of view is new. I don't think I necessarily agree with that. I think more people understand storytelling than they do POV, personally. But nonetheless, there's some really sound advice in here, and this idea of really using a process that literally would cost hundreds of thousands of dollars if you were to try to hire these guys is a real plus. And I personally believe everyone can benefit from this, not just tech companies or so forth. Let me fix my little camera here. Well, not going to be fixed. Okay. So this is the category. Really, it's about strategic planning, and we talk a lot about infinite mind and finite mind. This is a classic roadmap to infinite thinking. He said several times during the presentation, maybe your idea is this big. What if it's this big, right? And that's all part of the infinite thinking. Is you think you're just making jam or something, right? And maybe you're doing more than that. I'm sorry, I'm trying to adjust my little camera here. It keeps sliding. For those of you who might be interested in what's behind me, I did want to point out something that's kind of cool. So this is, I can't really get out of the way here. Let me try it this way. Okay. So this is a cranberry topped pork pie at a place in London called Mason and Fortnum, which is a big department store, kind of like Harrods, only smaller, if you know London at all. And they have the most amazing food section. It's actually an entire floor of a multiple floor place in downtown London, but they just have all these foods that I've never even heard of, thought of. It goes on and on and on. And really the reason I picked this today, since we're talking about category design, is because I certainly never thought, and I'll bet most of you never thought, I'm going to do a cranberry top pork pie for dinner tonight, or I'm going to sell it or make it, but this is kind of what we've been talking about, right? This is combining things that maybe you wouldn't think of. Maybe in our case it would be blueberries and pork. I don't know, because we have a lot of both of those. But again, it's 30 pounds for that pie right there, and I don't know what it looks like inside or anything. I've never had it, but this department store is just full of the oddest combinations of things like this, and the line is out the door at Christmas time. I mean, some of these things are Christmas traditions for people in London or whatever. But I did want to just kind of say, hey, this is an example of a product that probably none of us thought of, but it might be huge, right? It might be a huge thing, or maybe it's a blueberry top sweet potato pie. I'm trying to think of North Carolina stuff, but it could be full of peanut brittle, right? Peanut brittle pork pie. I mean, I'd try it, right? And maybe it's with savory peanut brittle instead of sweet. Anyway, I'm just full of it today. What can I say? But anyway, this is why I picked this picture for today, was to just get you thinking about weird combinations or different combinations that might set you apart. This, incidentally, is a great way to do a live show, because you can experiment with things that are not on your website or in your store or in your farmer's market. You can do something really weird and say, look, I was walking around London and, or Crazy Dennis told me about cranberry pork pie, whatever. You get to where it's going. It becomes fun, it's engaging, it gets people into your world and thinking about something that I promise you they've never thought of before that much, I'm pretty sure. Except if they talk to me, then I'll say, "Oh yeah, I'm into cranberry top pork pie." Who knew, right? I thought I was the only person in the world. But anyway, I open it up to you all. Given I've been talking for, it feels like about 2 hours, so why don't you all talk for a while? Kyle, what do you think? You're smiling. I can tell your brain's going a mile. That peanut suit is going to be too small the size your brain is getting.
It's a mess, but no, and I love this portion of the cohort. I really do, because it gets me thinking in all different ways and all different things. But and that's why we introduced our naked brittle. Not only was it a play on words, but it didn't have any nuts in it. So we went with that, thinking that was going to be solve a new problem. People with allergies, people with dietary issues, yada yada yada. It just didn't take off. So maybe it was too far in the stratosphere. Maybe we've introduced it too early. We didn't market it correctly. We'll table that and come back with it later. But it was a thought and an idea that we wouldn't have come up with until we, started thinking about this and asking some questions and getting people's input. So yeah, no, I love this portion.
My husband and I loved it though. We got some and we loved it. Yeah. So I don't
You
think
got
it's
cranberry
dead yet.
pork pie? You got cranberry?
No.
Oh,
No. His naked brittle.
Okay.
Nice.
Okay, gotcha. Well, I think if his company became Naked Candies instead of Opal's Candies, people might go, "What the hell's that? What is Naked Candies?" Got to find that out. And then you would have some candy that had little pants and shirts, and others that don't have any. So I don't know. Like I said, I'm just full of it today. Anyone else wanna chime in? All right, Grant, what do you think? Come on, man. You're smart, getting ready to graduate this year. Give us some wisdom from your vast background of marketing and class and so forth. All right, I caught Grant goofing off.
Hey, Dennis.
Yeah.
I'll give you a little example of something that we've been through. So when Dad began doing his barbecue sauce, excuse me, he also made a hot version, and he and Mother didn't know any other way to describe it other than hot, which it's really not hot. It's tangy. So as time goes through this process of it not, if his naked peanut brittle not really taken off, Dad's hot barbecue sauce, it just kind of sits on the shelves and doesn't really sell a whole lot. So I've been trying to plug him, and we're trying to change that word from hot to tangy, because when we're at shows, my husband and I push the hot because people really want to know, oh, it's hot. I can't handle hot. We don't like hot. And I said, if you'll just try it, it's not really hot. It's tangy. And it's got a little bit of sweet heat to it. And when they feel that, or when they hear that, they'll try it, and 99% of the time they'll buy it. So
Cool.
It is all in marketing, and I've got to get Daddy away from the word hot, but he's 85, so we're
Just tell him it's still hot, and give him a package, and then change all the other ones.
Yeah, I'm going to change it. He may not like it, but
Yeah, well, what's the old saying? Better to ask forgiveness than permission, right?
yeah, right.
Yeah.
So I just want to give you that example. It may be just that maybe you need to change its name, but I kind of like the word naked myself. But anyway.
Yeah. And I, my reaction to your story is call it kind of hot.
Kind of hot, yeah.
Kind of hot, or not really hot, or sort of hot, or something like
sort
that.
of.
Yeah, it's semi-hot,
I just wanted to share that story. That's just that's an example.
Thank you. Anyone else want to share their hot tips? All right. Well, that's all I have for today. We're moving toward, I do want to remind everyone about the October 4th event. If you're interested in signing up for that, the state is getting ready to send out press releases and list who's participating and all that kind of stuff. So even if you ultimately decide not to do it, I think it'd be a great idea to at least consider it, because I think you'll benefit from the PR and the advertising, if nothing else. So that's something to keep in mind. The other thing is, you're gonna feel like all I do is goof off. We're gonna meet on Monday, but that's gonna be our last class for a couple of weeks, and it's because I am going to London to visit my grandson, who we haven't seen since before the pandemic and before he's a teenager. He's really only 2.5, but still, we're really excited to go over there and see him. So that I couldn't figure out a way to keep the class going from there because the time change and the internet's terrible over there, at least where I'm going. So we're gonna basically Monday will be the last class for a couple of weeks. So I just want to alert you all to that. We'll make it up on the other end time wise, but I did want to remind everyone it's on the calendar and so forth, but I just want to make sure everybody remembers that or whatever. So that's the game plan. And so once again, I encourage you to download the Pop Shop Live app and apply to be a seller, and get in on the publicity, if nothing else, even if you decide you don't want to go live. Last year we had a ton of people sign up, and then their internet went out, they freaked out and got afraid, any number of things, but that's all okay. It's just what I'm trying to do is drive business to you as much as possible. And if a big state agency wants to spend a bunch of money, I'm all for it, so let's leverage that to the extent that you can or you're comfortable doing. So just kind of keep that in mind. All right. Yeah, go ahead.
Have you been successful in getting registered as a seller or approved as a seller?
One more time, I didn't hear the first part of that question.
Have you been successful in getting in touch with Pop Shop Live to?
Not yet. The person that I dealt with, I think, is gone. No one will tell me. She wasn't the CEO, but she was number 2 to the CEO. So I don't know if that's true. I can't really nail it down. She's normally really responsive, really good. So I'm trying to dig through and see what's going on, but that we'll get the answers. And we have a little bit of time. I know that the state agency likes to do everything way in advance, but don't worry. Everyone who signs up, the only thing that I think that they are against, I don't think they allow alcohol, and I don't think they allow CPD. And I'm just remembering that from last year. I'm assuming that's still the case. So I did have a CPD person that kind of blew up. They couldn't get through the process. But everything else should be fine, unless for some reason, Pop Shop Live is going through some kind of change or something that I'm unaware of at this moment. But hopefully, if they do blow up, if something happens, we have an alternative also that I'll spring into action with if we have to.
Yeah,
But
I signed up like weeks and weeks ago, just never been authorized as a seller.
yeah, I've got Jack Nails has been keeping me abreast of that, and I've got a list of people, where that's the case, and maybe they're having some kind of trouble. I don't know. They raised about $20 million in the summer of 2021, and they really were getting a lot of publicity. But I've noticed since then they have not raised any more money, and a couple of their competitors have raised big money. So I don't know if they're having some sort of problem or their growth isn't what they thought. I don't know what's going on. And my relationship is this one woman who I started with, who at the time was, I forget what her title was, but she ended up becoming general manager of the whole business. And she's really impressive, young Australian woman, but she's not responding to me. And her number 2 guy, Jack, is the guy who is responding semi irregularly. So I'm trying to put my foot down and say, hey, because they're the ones that gave me permission to do this, right, about 2 months ago or 3 months ago. Last time they assigned us a person as a project manager, and he was a nice guy, but we had 82 companies sign up, and he didn't even talk to 30 of them. I mean, he told me he did. He just, misled me. So when the day came, there were all these people that were excluded because he never responded. So, I don't know, but we'll see. Hang loose. We'll get it done one way or the other.
Thank you.
All right, everybody.